The room held its breath around that small vial, as if a kingdom could be poured into glass and stopped there. Eddard turned it slowly between two fingers, letting the lantern light catch the slick residue inside. It clung stubbornly to the inner curve, too thick to be simple water, too clear to be wine. A thing that wanted to hide what it was. Robert stood over the table with his goblet still in hand, frozen in the moment between need and doubt. The bandage at his shoulder pulled tight when he breathed, and every breath sounded like it scraped rawness from inside him. His eyes were fixed on the vial, but Eddard could feel the king's gaze slipping past it, reaching for faces, for the hand that had dared. Cersei Lannister watched from her corner with the calm of a woman who had never believed in safety. The guards flanking her stood stiff, as if her stillness unsettled them more than shouting would have. The door opened, and Barristan Selmy entered like a winter wind made polite. Quiet, controlled, cutting. His white cloak was pristine, but his eyes were old and sharp, and they took in the scene in a heartbeat. The king's trembling goblet, the lord's raised vial, the queen's shadowed smile. "Your grace," Barristan said, voice even. Robert's mouth tightened. "Someone tried to poison me," he rasped. Barristan's gaze flicked to the vial. "So it seems," he said, and the lack of surprise in his voice was its own kind of condemnation. He had served long enough to know that crowns attracted poison the way corpses attracted flies. Eddard held the vial up. "Do you recognize it?" he asked. Barristan stepped closer, studying. "I recognize the shape," he said, "not the substance." He glanced toward the door. Who had access? Robert's laugh was harsh, humorless. "Everyone," he spat. "The whole cursed city." Eddard's voice was low, the kind that did not rise because it did not need to. "Seal this chamber," he ordered. "No servant leaves the Red Keep. Not until we speak to them all." A guard hesitated. "My lord," Robert's voice cracked like thunder. "Do it," he snarled, "or I'll feed you your own tongue." The guard hurried out, boots thudding. Barristan's jaw tightened at the king's cruelty, but he did not rebuke him. He had learned what rebuking kings earned you. Robert's gaze snapped to Cersei. "You," he growled. Cersei's smile sharpened. "Me?" she echoed softly, as if amused by the predictability. Robert took a step toward her. The motion pulled at his wound. Pain flashed across his face, and rage surged to cover it. "You do not get to smirk," he hissed. "Not after you smashed my brother's skull," Cersei finished gently, and her voice was a knife wrapped in velvet. "After you dragged me through the realm like a prize." Her eyes flicked to the vial. "And now someone wants you dead. How curious." Robert's breath came harsh. "You're chained," he snarled. "That doesn't mean you can't whisper." Cersei tilted her head. "If I could wisp my way out of chains," she said softly, "do you think I would still be standing here listening to you threaten me?" Eddard felt the trap in her words. She wanted Robert to accuse her without proof, to show the court the king had become nothing but rage. She wanted him to look like the monster Tywin's story promised. He stepped between them, holding the vial up like a barrier. "This was placed in a private chamber," Eddard said. "Not in the hall, not in the street. Which means whoever did it had access to the Red Keep." Barristan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Or bribed someone who did," he said. Robert's gaze flicked to the guards. "Then I'll hang every servant," he growled. Eddard's voice stayed steady. "No," he said. "If you hang the innocent, you make enemies out of the frightened. We find the hand. We find the coin." Cersei's eyes gleamed. "Coin," she murmured. "Yes, how the city loves it." Robert's knuckles whitened around the goblet. He looked at it as if it were a snake. Slowly, deliberately, he set it down on the table. The metal rim clicked against wood, loud in the tight room. Barristan watched that small act as if it mattered more than any shouted oath. A king who could set down a cup could, perhaps, still be guided away from the edge. Eddard tucked the vial into his palm and closed his fingers around it, feeling its cold bite. We start with the men who brought food and drink, he said. Then the guards. Then anyone who entered this chamber. Robert's eyes burned. And if I find the one who did it? He asked softly. Eddard met his gaze. Then you punish them, he said. Publicly. Lawfully. Robert's mouth twisted. Lawfully? He repeated like a curse. Cersei's smile did not move. Careful, she whispered, almost kindly. If you start killing everyone who frightens you, you'll run out of subjects. Robert's head snapped toward her, murder in his eyes. Barristan took one step forward, not drawing steel, but placing himself where a blade would have to pass through him first. Your Grace, he said quietly. For a heartbeat, the room balanced on the thin edge of restraint. Then Robert exhaled hard, turned away from Cersei, and stared at the door like a man staring at a battlefield he could not see. Find it, he muttered. Find the hand. Eddard's grip tightened on the vial. We will, he said, though the truth was heavier. In King's Landing, hands did not act alone. They were paid, promised, threatened, and then forgotten. And the city was full of hands. Varys did not walk like other men. He drifted, as if floors were suggestions and walls were for less practiced bodies. He led Eddard through a narrow passage behind the Red Keep's walls, where torchlight was dim and the air smelled of damp stone and secrets. The sounds of the castle, boots, voices, laughter too high, came muffled through rock. Here, the keep's heart felt far away, and the veins were all that remained. Little faces watched from cracks in doors. Children with quick eyes, silent as mice. When they saw Varys, they melted back into darkness. When they saw Eddard, they held still as if deciding whether a wolf could be trusted. Eddard kept the poison vial hidden in his gloved hand. Fingers closed around it until the glass pressed lines into his skin. He did not trust the passage. He did not trust the keep. He trusted only the weight of ice at his side and the memory of winter stone. You were right, Eddard said quietly. Varys's eyes were sad. I would rather be wrong, he murmured. They reached a small chamber where Grand Maester Pycelle waited at a table, surrounded by little jars and stoppered vials like a man building a fragile wall against chaos. Pycelle's hands trembled, his chain clinking faintly with every movement. Sweat glistened on his brow. My lords, Pycelle wheezed, attempting dignity and failing. This is most distressing. Eddard placed the vial on the table and watched Pycelle's eyes latch onto it as if it were a spider. What is it? Eddard asked. Pycelle swallowed and reached for it with fingers that shook. He held it up to the torchlight, blinking, peering. It could be many things, he said quickly. Many substances can be clear. Name the worst, Eddard said. Pycelle's lips trembled. The tears of Lys, he whispered, as if afraid speaking the name might summon it. Colorless, odorless. It stops the breath as gently as a lover's kiss. Eddard felt cold spread under his ribs. Does this look like it? He asked. Pycelle hesitated. It could, he said, and the uncertainty was its own poison. But there are other. Varys's voice slid in soft. Other poisons that leave the same footprint, he said, which is why the person who placed it will not be found by taste alone. Pycelle nodded too fast. Yes, he said. Yes, precisely. Eddard's jaw tightened. Who has access to such poisons? He demanded. Pycelle's eyes flicked away. Apothecaries, he began. Maesters, certain merchants. Men who can be bought, Eddard said. Pycelle flinched. Varys's gaze was gentle and merciless. In this city, he murmured, everyone can be bought. The only question is whether they sell themselves cheaply. Eddard leaned closer to Pycelle. Test it, he said. Do whatever you must, and tell no one what you suspect. Pycelle's Adam's apple bobbed. Of course, he whispered. Of course. Eddard turned to Varys. You warned me about the gates, he said. You warned me about the watch. Varys's smee. Lou was faint and sorrowful. Warnings are easier than solutions, he murmured. Eddard's voice was low. Who benefits from Robert dead? He asked. Varys did not answer quickly. In that pause, Eddard could feel the city's webs tightening. Many, Varys said at last. Lord Tywin benefits. Lord Renly benefits. Lord Stannis benefits. Littlefinger benefits. Even the realm benefits if it believes the king has become unstable. His eyes lifted to Eddard, sharp beneath sadness. And that is the most dangerous part, my lord. When murder can be sold as mercy. Eddard felt the weight of it. Renly, he said quietly. Varys's gaze flicked, almost imperceptibly. Renly smiles, he murmured. And smiles hide knives as well as cloaks do. Eddard's fingers tightened on the table edge. And Littlefinger? He asked. Varys's eyes softened, and it almost looked like pity. Littlefinger counts, he said. He does not bleed. He makes others bleed. Eddard's thoughts flashed to the gate, to Janos Slynt's sweating grin, to the line of spears that had nearly turned the king's entry into slaughter. The city watch, he said. Varys inclined his head. Janos Slynt is not clever, he murmured, but he is greedy. Greed can be aimed. Eddard exhaled slowly. Then we aim it back, he said. Pycelle cleared his throat, voice trembling. My lords, he said, if the king believes, if he believes everyone is. He already does, Eddard said. Varys's voice turned softer still. Then we must give him a single enemy, he murmured. Something he can strike without shattering the realm's last support. Eddard looked at the poison vial, small and clear and infinitely heavy. And if the enemy is the realm itself? He asked. Varys's eyes were sad. Then we pray, he said softly, that the realm tires before the king does. Eddard left the chamber with the vial back in his palm, and as he followed Varys through the passage again, he felt the keep's walls pressing in like a noose. The poison had not been meant only to kill Robert Baratheon. It had been meant to prove that he could be killed whenever someone wished it. Cersei Lannister did not need freedom to be dangerous. She only needed a crack. They had moved her from the private chamber to a harder room. Stone, barred window, a single candle, guards stationed outside who did not pretend to be polite anymore. The chains at her wrists were real now, not hidden beneath velvet. That was meant to humiliate her. It did not. Humiliation was a weapon for people who still believed shame mattered. Cersei sat on the narrow bed with her back straight and her hands resting calmly in her lap, as if chains were simply jewelry she had chosen for the day. She listened to the keep sounds, the distant shout of a guard, the clatter of boots, the muffled swell of the city beyond, and she smiled faintly because fear always made men loud. The door opened, and the guard stiffened. Joffrey Baratheon entered first, posture stiff with the imitation of authority. Sandor Clegane followed like a shadow. Broad, scarred, his eyes flat and tired. The Hound's hand hovered near his sword as if he did not trust any room with a Lannister in it, chained or not. The Stark guard at the door hesitated, then stepped aside under the pressure of royal presence, even if that presence was only a boy's. Mother, Joffrey said softly. Cersei's eyes lifted to him, and for a heartbeat, something like warmth almost appeared. Then it hardened into the love she understood. Possession, pride, and the promise of vengeance. My son, she said, they let you visit. How gracious. Joffrey's mouth twisted. They think I'm harmless, he whispered. Cersei's smile sharpened. Do not correct them, she murmured. Sandor Clegane did not speak. He watched the Stark guard, then watched the shadows, as if expecting a knife to leap from them. Joffrey moved closer, lowering his voice. He almost drank it, he whispered, and there was hunger in the words. Cersei's fingers stilled. Almost, she repeated. The wolf stopped him, Joffrey hissed. Stark, always Stark. Cersei's eyes narrowed, calculating. Then Stark is the obstacle, she murmured. Not Robert. Remember that. Joffrey's jaw clenched. I want him dead too, he said, and the boy's hatred had already begun to sound like a king's decree. Cersei leaned forward slightly, chains clinking softly. "You want many things," she said. "Wanting is still cheap. Tell me what you have." Joffrey glanced at Sandor Clegane as if checking whether the Hound would betray him by conscience. Sandor's face did not change. His burned mouth twisted faintly, almost a sneer, and his eyes seemed to say he had seen this kind of plotting before and it always ended in blood. "The watch," Joffrey whispered. "Captain Slynt listens." Cersei's smile returned, slow and satisfied. "Of course he does," she murmured. "Men like Slynt listen to whoever holds the coin closest to their ear." Joffrey's eyes glittered. "And Renly," he said. "Uncle Renly smiles at me." Cersei's gaze sharpened. "Renly smiles at everyone," she said softly. Hat is why he is dangerous." Joffrey's mouth twisted. "He says he wants peace," he hissed. Cersei laughed quietly. "Peace is what men say when they are sharpening knives," she replied. "What did he offer you?" Joffrey hesitated. "He said the city needs stability," he whispered. "That father is unwell." Cersei's eyes gleamed. "Unwell?" she repeated, savoring the word. "Good. Let them say it louder. Let them shout it in the streets until it becomes truth." Sandor Clegane shifted his weight, impatient. "This is treason," he rumbled. Joffrey flinched, but his pride rose quickly. "It's survival," he snapped. Cersei's gaze slid to Sandor. "You have killed for less," she said softly. Sandor's eyes were flat. He said, "and I don't pretend it makes it right." Cersei smiled faintly. "Right?" she echoed. "A pretty word. No one wears it in this city." Joffrey leaned closer, voice urgent. "Tell me what to do," he demanded. Cersei studied him for a long moment. Then she reached down beside the bed and pulled a small scrap of wax from beneath the mattress. Something she had saved from a candle stub, soft enough to take an imprint. With her lion ring, she pressed it hard, leaving a clear mark. She held it up to Joffrey. "This is a key," she whispered. "Not to chains, to minds. A seal means legitimacy. It means orders." Joffrey's eyes fixed on it, hungry. Cersei's voice dropped. "You will not strike first," she said. "Not yet. You will let the city believe Robert Baratheon is dangerous. You will let Renly and the council talk themselves into thinking they are saving the realm. And when they move," her smile sharpened, "you will be standing where the crown falls." Joffrey's breath quickened. "And you?" he whispered. Cersei's eyes glittered. "I will be freed," she said simply. "Because men do not keep lions caged when the cage is on fire." Sandor Clegane's jaw tightened. "And if the king lives?" he asked, voice low. Cersei looked at him with something like contempt for his simplicity. "Then the king will not live long," she murmured. Joffrey smiled. A small, cold smile that did not belong on a boy's face. Outside the barred window, the city roared faintly, a distant beast sensing blood. Cersei leaned back on the bed, chains clinking softly, and watched her son's shadow as he left. In King's Landing, a queen did not need a throne to rule. Sometimes all she needed was a child who believed he deserved one. Robert did not give the city time to digest him. He forced it to swallow. He convened the small council by midday, dragging men from beds and brothels and prayers. The council chamber filled with familiar faces wearing unfamiliar tension. Even the candles seemed to burn with caution. Eddard stood at Robert's right, a constant dark presence, the wolf beside the stag. Varys waited with folded hands and sorrowful eyes. Peter Baelish lounged as if the chair were a throne of comfort made for him alone. Renly sat with a gentle smile that could have soothed a child and would have fooled only one. Grand Maester Pycelle hovered like a frightened chicken, and Janos Slynt stood near the door in his gold cloak armor, sweating through it. Robert entered like a storm with a wound. He did not sit. He did not greet. He strode to the table and slammed the poison vial down hard enough to make it hop. "Someone tried to kill me," Robert said, voice flat. Silence snapped tight. Pycelle's mouth opened. "Your Grace." Robert cut him off with a glare. "Do not bleat," he snarled. "Tell me who has access to poison like this." Pycelle's hands trembled. "It could be many names," Robert barked. Varys's voice slid in soft. "Poisons are like coins, Your Grace," he murmured. "They pass through many hands." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Then we cut off hands," he growled. Renly lifted a palm, gentle. "Brother," he said, "the city is already on the edge. If you begin cutting—" Robert's head snapped toward him. "If you begin soothing," Robert thundered, "I'll throw you off the walls." Renly's smile held, but his eyes hardened a fraction. "I mean only that panic is useful to your enemies," he said smoothly. Peter Baelish chuckled. "Panic is useful to everyone," he murmured. "It makes people buy." Robert's gaze swung to him like a hammer. "And what do you buy with?" Robert demanded. "My coin? My crown." Peter's smile widened slightly. "Information," he said. "Stability. Peace. It depends what you're selling." Eddard's voice cut through, low and dangerous. "Captain Slynt," he said, turning his gaze to Janos. "Who controlled the gate yesterday?" Janos blinked rapidly, sweat shining. "The watch," he stammered. "As always, my lord. For the king's safety." Robert's lips curled. "Safety," he echoed, and the word dripped contempt. Eddard held Janos's gaze. "The watch tried to take the queen from the king at the gate," he said, "under the excuse of preventing riot." Janos's mouth worked. "We meant to help," he said quickly. "The mob was." Robert slammed his fist into the table. "The mob is always there," he roared. "That's why I have a crown, so mobs learn fear again." Renly's voice remained calm. "The mob will not fear if it believes the king is unstable," he said softly. The word landed in the room like a spark. Robert went very still. "Unstable," he repeated. Renly's smile did not move. "People whisper," he said gently, "about Winterfell, about the hammer, about the queen in chains. They whisper, and whispers become riots." Robert's eyes burned. "Then we stop the whisperers," he snarled. Varys's gaze softened, but his voice was careful. "Sometimes, Your Grace," he murmured. "Stopping whispers requires giving the city something louder." Robert's fingers tightened around the poison vial until it creaked. "Louder," he said. Eddard stepped in. "A lawful trial," he said quietly. "Public, controlled, with witnesses, with the faith present. The realm must see you are king, not a man swinging rage." Robert's jaw clenched. He hated the words because they were true. "A trial," he rasped, eyes flicking toward the door as if he could see Cersei behind it. Renly's smile warmed, sensing opportunity. "A trial would calm the city," he said. "A proper one, with dignity." Peter Baelish's eyes glittered. "Dignity," he murmured. "How expensive?" Robert's gaze snapped to Janos again. "And you," he growled, "you will answer for the gate, for the riot, for who among your men takes lion coin." Janos swallowed, face slick. "Your Grace, I—" "Shut up," Robert snarled. He turned to Barristan Selmy at the door. "Ser Barristan," he said, voice tight, "take Captain Slynt into custody. Quietly. No spectacle. I want him questioned until truth falls out of him." Janos's eyes widened with panic. "Your Grace." Barristan hesitated only a heartbeat. "Duty 1. He stepped forward, white cloak sweeping, and placed a firm hand on Janos's arm. Janos's breath hitched. This is the king's will," Barristan said, voice like iron wrapped in courtesy. As Janos was led out, Renly's gaze flicked briefly to Peter Baelish. Peter's smile remained fixed, but his eyes sharpened. Varys watched them all with quiet sadness. Robert stood over the table, breathing hard. "I will hold the trial," he growled. "I will make her speak. And when she does, I will burn every lie out of this city." Eddard looked at the poison vial and felt no relief. Because in King's Landing, trials did not calm storms. They summoned them. Night in the Red Keep was never truly dark. It was full of torchlight and whispers and the soft footfalls of men who did not want to be seen. Eddard did not sleep. He sat in a hard chair near Robert's chambers with ice across his knees and listened to the keep breathe. The poison vial sat wrapped in cloth on the table beside him like a sleeping serpent. Outside, somewhere in the city, a mob roared faintly, swelling and shrinking like an angry sea. A soft step. Another. Too many. Eddard rose before the guards could announce anything. He moved into the corridor, and his Stark men stiffened as they saw the shape of danger approach. Gold cloaks where no gold cloaks should be. The first spear thrust came without warning, aimed for a guard's belly. The guard twisted, the spear scraping mail, and steel flashed. The corridor erupted. Gold cloaks surged in a tight knot, spears and short swords, faces shadowed beneath helms. Stark guards met them with northern brutality. No fancy flourishes, only killing. Baratheon men joined, roaring, boots thudding, shields slamming. Torchlight spilled across stone, making blood look black. Eddard pushed into the fight, ice slicing down. A gold cloak spear snapped against Valyrian steel. The man stared in surprise. Then ice opened his throat, and surprise became a wet gurgle. "Hold the stairs," Eddard shouted. "Don't let them reach the king." Another gold cloak lunged at him with a dagger, eyes wild. Eddard caught the man's wrist, twisted hard, heard bone crack, then drove his pommel into the man's face. Teeth scattered across stone. Somewhere above, boots pounded. Someone running up the stairwell, fast and light. Eddard turned, heart hammering. The stairwell was narrow, stone steps curving up into torchlit shadow. Gold cloaks shoved upward, trying to break through, trying to reach something beyond. The king. Eddard drove forward, shoulder slamming a gold cloak into the wall. A Baratheon man took a spear in the thigh and screamed, dragging himself back, blood streaking the steps. The keep rang with steel, and then Barristan Selmy appeared. He came down the steps in his white cloak like a blade dropped from heaven, swift, precise, merciless. His sword flashed, cutting through a gold cloak spear and then the man behind it in a single motion. He did not shout. He did not curse. He killed with quiet efficiency, as if every strike was prayer. "Stand down," Barristan commanded, voice carrying. In the king's name. One gold cloak hesitated. Another did not. Barristan's blade opened the second man's belly, and the first man's courage collapsed. The gold cloaks began to break, backing down the corridor, retreating into shadows, but Eddard saw what mattered more. One hooded figure slipping upward, using the chaos as cover. After him, Eddard barked. Two Stark men lunged up the steps, but the hooded figure was already rounding a bend, vanishing into the upper corridors where doors and tapestries hid more seeker. T.S. then stone. Eddard chased 3 steps, then stopped. The king's safety came first. He turned back to the corridor, breathing hard, eyes scanning the fallen. Gold cloaks lay dead or dying on the stone, their yellow cloaks soaked dark. Stark men bled too, northern blood slick on southern steps. Barristan wiped his blade on a dead man's cloak with cold practicality. His eyes met Eddard's. "This is inside the keep," Barristan said quietly. Eddard's voice was grim. "Yes," he replied. "Which means someone opened a door." Barristan's jaw tightened. "Or someone paid a guard," he said. Eddard looked at the dead gold cloaks and felt the city's reach. The attack had not been a riot spilling in. It had been targeted. It had been planned. It had been meant to test how close a knife could get to Robert's throat. And it had been close. From down the corridor, a shout rose. Guards calling for the king, for order, for answers. The keep was waking, and waking made it loud. Eddard stepped over bodies and headed toward Robert's chambers, feeling the stone underfoot and the truth behind it. The Red Keep was not a fortress tonight. It was a battlefield, and the enemy wore the city's colors. Joffrey did not cry when the gold cloaks failed. He listened to the news as it trickled through the keep. whispers from servants, frightened murmurs from guards, and his face remained smooth, as if he were hearing the weather. Only his eyes betrayed him, bright and cold, turning failure into hunger. By late night, he slipped from his guarded rooms with the ease of a boy who had grown up in palaces where doors were always opening for him. Sandor Clegane followed, silent, heavy-footed, a reluctant shadow. The Hound did not like sneaking, but he liked being controlled even less, and Joffrey's cruelty was a leash he had long ago stopped pretending wasn't there. They moved through a side passage into a gold cloak barracks hall where men drank and sharpened blades in low light. When Joffrey entered, the room stilled. Some men half-knelt out of reflex. Others stared, unsure whether a prince meant reward or trouble. Janos Slynt emerged from an inner office, face pale, eyes darting. He looked like a man who had already been in chains once and could still feel them. "My prince," Janos said quickly. Joffrey stopped in front of him, too close, making Janos lean back instinctively. "You failed," Joffrey said softly. Janos swallowed. "The Stark men Barristan sell me." Joffrey's eyes narrowed. "Excuses," he whispered. Sandor shifted behind him, hand near his sword, eyes flat. He watched Janos the way a dog watched meat. Janos's fingers tightened around something in his pocket. He hesitated, then pulled it out. A small wax impression, lion-marked, and a few coins that clinked softly. Joffrey's gaze fixed on the wax. His mouth curved faintly. "My mother," he murmured. Janos's voice trembled. She has friends," he said. "In the city, in the keep." Joffrey leaned closer, voice low enough that only Janos and Sandor could hear. "Do you know what my father is planning?" he asked. Janos licked his lips. "A trial," he whispered. "They say the queen will be made to speak." Joffrey's eyes gleamed. "And do you know what happens if she speaks?" he asked softly. Janos hesitated, then shook his head quickly. "I know, my prince." Joffrey's smile turned cruel. "Then I lose my crown," he whispered. Janos's face drained of color. He looked like a man who had just realized which storm he had been standing under. Joffrey's voice hardened, boyish softness stripped away. "You will not fail again," he said. "You will put more men at the keep. You will have the gates ready. And when the time comes, you will do what is required." Janos's mouth worked. "Required," he echoed, voice thin. Joffrey's gaze did not blink. "Protect the capital," he said, and the words were the same lie adults used to dress murder. "From a king who has gone mad." Sandor's jaw tightened. "He's still the king," he rumbled. Joffrey turned his head slightly, eyes flashing. "He's a drunk with a hammer," he snapped, "and he is not safe." His voice dropped again, colder. "I am." Sandor held the PRI. NC's gazed for a long moment, then looked away, as if disgusted by how familiar the words sounded. Janos swallowed hard. "And if Lord Stark stands in the way?" he asked. Joffrey's smile sharpened. "Then the wolf dies," he whispered. Janos flinched. That's politics," Joffrey finished softly. He reached down to the bench and dragged a small stack of gold coins toward Janos, letting them scrape and clink. "You like coin," he said. "Coin likes you. Take it. Remember who will pay you when my father is dead or powerless." Janos's fingers closed around the coins as if they were a lifeline. Joffrey leaned closer one last time. "You will hear the city before we do," he whispered. "When it starts to roar for blood, you point it at the right throat." He stepped back, satisfied. As he turned to leave, Sandor followed, silent, and Janos Slynt stood in the barracks hall with lion wax in one hand and gold in the other, realizing too late that he had tied himself to a boy who did not understand mercy and never would. Outside, the city's distant roar swelled again, and it sounded less like riot now and more like anticipation. The faith did not ask permission. It announced itself like a bell. By morning, the High Septon had sent word that the Queen's sins, or the King's, were now the gods' concern. The great September of Baelor, white and towering, waited on its hill like a promise of purity in a city that stank of rot. Eddard rode ahead with Stark guards forming a tight shield wall, pushing through streets that bristled with bodies. The crowd was thick, pressed close, faces sharp with hunger. They shouted as the guards passed, words tumbling over one another. Whore, Kingslayer, Mad King, Justice, until language became only noise. Robert did not ride a horse today. His shoulder wound had stiffened overnight, angry and swollen, and the maesters had insisted he be carried in a litter. The indignity burned hotter than the pain. When his litter appeared, the crowd surged as if drawn by the scent of blood. "Robert!" Some shouted, half prayer, half curse. "Where's the queen?" Others screamed. A rotten apple struck a shield and splattered. Then a stone. Then another. The shield wall tightened. Stark men shoved back with boots and shoulders, faces grim. The High Septon stood at the top of the Sept steps, surrounded by lesser holy men, his robes bright, his face pale and soft like bread left too long and damp. Statues of the Seven loomed behind him, stone eyes watching the chaos with eternal disapproval. When Robert's litter halted at the base of the steps, the king pushed himself up with a grimace and stepped down anyway, refusing to be carried further. He climbed the first steps with his jaw clenched, cloak dragging, face red with fury and strain. Eddard stayed beside him, close enough to catch him if he fell, close enough to block a knife if one came. Barristan Selmy's white cloak flickered behind, steady as duty. The High Septon lifted his hands as if to bless the air. "Your Grace," he called, voice thin but carrying. "The gods weep." Robert's mouth twisted. "Then tell them to grow stronger," he snarled. "I have no patience for weeping gods." A murmur ran through the holy men. The High Septon's cheeks flushed. "The realm is in turmoil," he said. "The queen is accused of sins that, if true, would shake the very foundation." Robert's laugh was harsh. "Foundation?" he spat. "My foundation was a lie. My bed was a lie. The only thing I trust now is steel." The crowd roared at that, some in approval, some in horror. Eddard stepped forward slightly, voice controlled. "The king will hold a lawful trial," he said. "The faith will have its place. But not here, not on these steps, not in front of a mob." The High Septon's eyes narrowed faintly, offended by being treated like a lord rather than a god's mouth. "The gods require humility," he said. Robert's gaze burned. "The gods require nothing from me," he snarled. "I required faith once, and it gave me nothing back." The High Septon drew himself up, voice trembling with indignation and fear. "Then perhaps," he said, "the gods will require your crown." The words were a spark thrown into dry straw. The crowd surged. A wave of bodies pressed forward, hungry for the idea that the king could be punished, that someone might finally bleed who was not them. Stark shields slammed together. Men shouted. A gold cloak captain tried to push through and was swallowed by the crowd for a moment, his helm disappearing, then reappearing crooked, blood on his cheek. Robert's hand drifted toward his hammer, not there, and the instinct made his shoulders tighten. He looked, briefly, like a man ready to smash a religion. Eddard leaned close, voice low, urgent. "Do not," he whispered. "Not here." Robert's breath came hard. He stared up at the High Septon, then down at the crowd, then at the statues looming behind like stone judges. He swallowed rage, and it looked like swallowing glass. "You will have your trial," Robert said, voice rough. "And you will have it in my hall, not in the street like a butcher's show." The High Septon's lips thinned. "The gods see all halls," he said. Robert leaned close, eyes blazing. "Then let them watch," he growled, "and let them learn what happens when they test my patience." Eddard could feel the city's eyes on them, could feel the crowd's hunger rising, could feel the faith's pride sharpening into defiance. They had come to the Sept to claim legitimacy. Instead, they had fed the city a new rumor, that even the gods might rise against the king. And in King's Landing, rumors were deadlier than swords. The raven's wings beat like an omen. It arrived in the Red Keep's rookery at noon, black feathers slick with city soot, its claws wrapped around a message sealed with stag wax so hard it looked like a bruise. The maester offered it with trembling hands, as if touching it might infect him. Eddard broke the seal and read quickly, and with every line, the air in his chest tightened. Stannis Baratheon did not write like a brother. He wrote like a judge. He demanded lawful proceedings. He demanded the queen be held for trial under the faith. He demanded the children be secured for the realm's safety. He spoke of succession with cold clarity, and between the lines, sharp as a blade, was the implication that Robert Baratheon was no longer fit to rule if he could be baited, wounded, poisoned, and provoked into public fury. Eddard looked up at Robert and saw the king's face darkening as he read over Eddard's shoulder, mouth twisting with each word. "He dares," Robert whispered. Renly stood a little way off, hands folded, watching the moment with serene interest. His smile was small, almost affectionate, like a man watching a horse stumble and considering whether to take the reins. Varys lingered nearby, face sorrowful, eyes sharp, as if he had seen this letter long before the raven ever flew. Robert snatched the parchment from Eddard and crumpled it with his good hand. "He wants my crown," he snarled. Eddard's voice was careful. "He wants the law," he said. Robert's eyes blazed. "He wants to call me weak," he hissed. "He wants to stand over my corpse and say he was right." Renly stepped forward, voice gentle. "Brother," he said, "Stannis is frightened. He always has been. He fears disorder." Robert's gaze snapped to him. "Do you?" Robert demanded. Renly's smile held. "I fear the realm tearing itself apart," he said smoothly. "And I fear you giving our enemies every excuse to push the city against you." Robert's laugh was harsh. "Enemies," he spat. "Name them." Renly's eyes flicked, just briefly, toward Eddard, toward Varys, toward the rookery door where servants waited. "The city," he said softly. "The faith, the lords who smell blood. Even Stannis, if he believes you're doomed." Eddard felt the trap hidden in the kindness. Renly was offering Robert a mirror. "You are surrounded. You are unstable. You need help. And help always came with a cost." Varys's voice was soft. "Dragonstone's words will not remain on parchment," he murmured. "They will be whispered." Robert's jaw clenched. "Let them whisper," he growled. "I'll silence them." Eddard stepped closer. "Not with a hammer," he said quietly. "With proof." Robert's eyes flashed. "Proof," he snapped. "Everyone says proof, as if proof will keep knives away." Eddard's voice was low. "Proof will keep the realm from calling you a mad butcher," he said. "Proof will keep men from rallying to Stannis because he looks like stability." Robert stared at him, and something raw shifted behind high sighs. He wanted Eddard to be wrong. He needed the world to be solvable by violence. But letters and whispers were not men you could smash. Renly's voice slid in, calm. "We can give the realm stability," he said. "We can show them the king is still king." He paused, then added gently, "We can set a date for the trial. Soon. Before the rumors grow teeth." Eddard's stomach tightened. A rushed trial was a trap. A delayed trial was a trap. In King's Landing, time itself was a weapon. Robert looked from Renly to Eddard, breathing hard. "Soon," he muttered. "Fine. Soon." Varys's eyes softened with something like pity, because Eddard could feel it too. The trial would not be about Cersei. It would be about whether Robert Baratheon still deserved to sit on a throne that was already tasting his blood. Tyrion Lannister entered the Red Keep like a man stepping into a room where his own name might be a death sentence. He came under a flag of truce and a promise of safe conduct, and still every guard's hand tightened on steel when they saw the lion on his seal. Dust clung to his cloak. His hair was wind-tangled. His eyes were bright with exhaustion, and behind it, something sharper, grief laced with calculation, the only kind of grief Tywin ever allowed his children to keep. The hall murmured when he appeared. Courtiers leaned together like reeds in wind. Some faces showed curiosity. Some showed hatred. Some showed fear, because Tywin Lannister's son did not travel alone, even when he appeared to. Robert sat above them on his throne, shoulder bandaged beneath his cloak, his expression carved from rage. The warhammer leaned against the steps like a sleeping beast. Eddard stood below, ice at his side, feeling the room's balance shift under Tyrion's small, steady footsteps. Barristan Selmy watched with the stillness of a man who knew how quickly safe conduct could become regret. Tyrion stopped at the foot of the steps and bowed. It was not deep. It was correct. "Your Grace," Tyrion said, voice clear. Robert's laugh was bitter. "Little lion," he growled. "Come to lick the blood off my floor?" Tyrion's mouth twitched. "I came," he said softly, "to prevent more blood from soaking the realm." Robert's eyes narrowed. "You mean to prevent it from soaking Lannister boots?" he snarled. Tyrion lifted a sealed letter. "From my father," he said. Robert's gaze locked on it like it was a weapon. "Read it," Robert demanded. Tyrion's eyes flicked to Eddard briefly, measuring, remembering Winterfell from stories, not sight. Then Tyrion broke the seal and unfolded the parchment. He read Tywin's words aloud in a voice that did not tremble. Tywin demanded Cersei's release. He demanded the children be returned to safety. He demanded Robert publicly condemn the northern kidnapping and the murder of Jaime Lannister, framed as unlawful brutality. He offered peace in exchange for obedience and threatened war if refused. Every line was carved from arrogance and certainty. When Tyrion finished, silence held the hall. Robert's face had gone very still. "Peace," he whispered. Tyrion watched him carefully. "My father believes peace is possible," Tyrion said, "if the realm's dignity is restored." Robert's eyes blazed. "Dignity?" he roared. "He speaks to me of dignity after his son fucked my wife and laughed at me?" A murmur rippled. Tyrion's eyes flickered. A brief flash of pain at Jaime's name, quickly caged behind wit. "Jaime is dead," Tyrion said quietly. "Nothing will change that." Robert leaned forward, voice shaking with fury. "I changed it," he snarled. "I changed it with my hammer." Eddard stepped in, voice low. "Your Grace," he warned. Robert's gaze snapped to him. "Do not," he hissed. "Do not ask me to be gentle." Tyrion held the king's gaze without flinching. "If you want truth," he said softly, "you will not get it by roaring. You will get it by surviving." Robert's lips curled. "You lecture me," he growled. Tyrion's smile was faint, bitter. "I lecture everyone," he replied. "It's my only hobby that doesn't require height." A few courtiers laughed nervously, then stopped when Robert's glare swept them. Eddard watched Tyrion closely. This was not the man who would charge with a sword. This was a man who would slip a knife into your ribs and call it a conversation. "What is your father's real offer?" Eddard asked. Tyrion's gaze shifted to him, sharp. "Time," he said. "A way for the king to step back from the cliff without the realm watching him fall." He paused, then added more quietly, "And a way for my father to take his daughter back without appearing weak." Robert's laugh was cruel. "He wants his lioness," Robert snarled. "He wants his cubs. He wants my crown to wobble." Tyrion did not deny it. "He wants control," he said. "As always." Robert's hand tightened on the throne arm. "Then tell him this," Robert growled. "Tell him I will hold trial. Tell him his daughter will answer. And tell him if he brings war to my door, I will hang his banners from my walls." Tyrion's eyes narrowed slightly. "And if the trial proves inconvenient?" he asked softly. The hall went tight at the word. Eddard felt the weight of it. Proof could set the realm on fire. Lack of proof could set Robert on fire. Robert's face contorted. "It will prove what I saw," he snarled. "It will prove the truth." Tyrion's smile was very small. "Truth," he murmured. "Yes, the realm is always so fond of it, until it costs." Robert leaned forward, voice low and vicious. "Leave," he said. While your safe conduct still means anything. Tyrion bowed again, controlled. As you command, your grace, he said. As he turned to go, his eyes flicked to Eddard once more, and in that glance Eddard saw it. Tyrion was not here only to deliver demands. He was here to measure the cracks, to see how close the crown was to slipping, and Tyrion Lannister would report those cracks to a father who knew exactly where to place the wedge. The coup did not announce itself with trumpets. Crept like poison. It began with boots in the courtyard after midnight, too many of them, moving in practiced rhythm. Torches bobbed, spear points glinted. The red keep stones held the cold of the sea, and the air smelled of smoke and sweat and fear. Eddard was awake, because Eddard had been awake for days. He heard the movement before a guard shouted. He stepped to the window slit and saw gold cloaks pouring into the courtyard in a disciplined line. Not the messy surge of riot control, but the clean formation of men who believed they were acting under authority. At their head marched Slynt, face set tight, eyes darting. He wore his gold cloak like armor against guilt. Eddard's blood went cold. He strode into the corridor and barked orders, stark men forming fast, swords drawn. Baratheon guards snapped to attention outside Robert's chambers, confused, sleep still clinging to their eyes. Janos's voice rang out in the courtyard, loud enough to wake the keep. "In the name of the realm," he shouted, and the phrase was a mask for treason. "The City Watch takes command of the Red Keep until the king's safety is assured." Eddard stepped out onto the courtyard steps, ice drawn, Valyrian steel swallowing torchlight. His voice cut through the night like a blade. "You are out of your place," he said. Janos's eyes flicked to ice, fear trembling behind his bravado. "Lord Stark," he called, voice strained. "This is not against you. This is against chaos." "Chaos?" Eddard echoed, disgust heavy in his throat. "Is that what you call a bought knife?" Janos's jaw clenched. "The king is unwell," he shouted. "The city riots. The faith demands answers. The realm can choke," came a voice like thunder. Robert Baratheon emerged from the shadows behind Eddard, dragging his wounded body upright by sheer will. His bandaged shoulder was dark with fresh blood where the movement had torn it. His face was pale, but his eyes were burning. In his hands was his warhammer, heavy and real and honest in a way the courtyard's words were not. Every man froze for a heartbeat, because kings were dangerous even when bleeding. Robert stepped forward, hammer hanging at his side like a sentence. "You come into my keep," he growled, "with my city's cloaks on your backs, and you tell me you take command?" Janos swallowed hard. "Your grace," he stammered, and the word sounded like a lie. Robert's laugh was low and terrible. "Whose order?" he demanded. "Renly's? Littlefinger's? Tywin's?" Janos's eyes darted past Robert, toward the shadows, as if seeking reassurance from someone unseen. Eddard followed that glance and saw Renly Baratheon standing back beneath an archway, half hidden, cloak thrown over his shoulders. Renly's face was calm, almost sorrowful, as if he were watching a necessary tragedy unfold. Robert saw him too. For a moment, the king's expression shifted. Not rage, but something like heartbreak. Because betrayal from a brother cut deeper than betrayal from a lion. Renly lifted his hands slightly, palms out. "Brother," he called gently, "this is to keep the peace. The city is." Robert's roar drowned him. "Peace?" he thundered. "You buy my watch and call it peace?" Renly's smile faltered a fraction, then returned, smoother. "The realm cannot endure another Winterfell," he said softly. "Not another hammer in a hall. Not another." Robert moved. He strode down the steps toward Slynt, hammer rising. Gold cloaks tightened their line, spears lowering instinctively. Stark men surged forward, blades flashing. "Hold!" Eddard shouted, but the knight had passed the point of holding. A spear thrust toward Robert's chest. Robert twisted, the spear scraping his cloak, and his hammer came down in a brutal arc, smashing the spear shaft and the man's hand beneath it. The gold cloak screamed, dropping, blood spraying. The courtyard erupted. Stark men crashed into gold cloaks.
Stilrang.
Torches fell. Horses screamed somewhere in the lower yard as panic spread. The Red Keep became a slaughterhouse under lantern light. Janos Slynt tried to back away, face contorted with fear. "Your Grace, wait!" Robert's hammer caught him across the jaw. The impact was sickening. Janos's teeth scattered onto stone like dice. He fell hard, clutching his face, blood pouring between his fingers. Robert loomed over him, breathing hard, eyes wild. "Who paid you?" he growled. Janos gurgled, eyes rolling. He choked, and then his gaze flicked toward the archway again, toward Renly, toward the shadows. Robert followed that flick with the instinct of a hunter. Renly stepped back into darkness, the gentleness falling away, replaced by cold calculation. He did not shout. He did not draw steel. He simply vanished because he had never intended to be the man holding the knife, only the man who benefited when it was used. Eddard's heart hammered. He saw the shape of it now. This had been a test, a push, an attempt to see whether the king could be contained. And by fighting, Robert had proven what his enemies wanted him to prove, that blood followed him like a banner. But if Robert had not fought, he would have been caged, perhaps killed quietly, perhaps protected, until the crown slipped from his hands. Eddard drove forward, cutting down a gold cloak who raised a spear at Robert's back. "To the gate!" Eddard shouted. "Drive them out!" Barristan Selmy appeared again like duty made flesh, white cloak flashing, blade precise. He cut a path through confusion, his face grim, his eyes full of something like sorrow. "Enough!" he shouted, voice carrying. "Enough in the king's name!" Some gold cloaks broke then, courage collapsing. Others fought harder because once a man crossed a line, retreat meant hanging. Robert stood in the courtyard with blood on his hammer and fresh pain in his shoulder, breathing like a beast. He looked around at the dead gold cloaks and Tark men both, and something in his eyes cracked and hardened in the same instant. "This city is mine," he rasped, "and I will burn it down before I let it cage me." Eddard stepped close, voice low, urgent. "Do not say that," he warned. "Not where anyone can hear." Robert's gaze snapped to him, wild. "They already hear," he whispered. "They hear everything." Eddard looked at the archway where Renly had been, now empty, now only shadow and stone. He looked at Janos Slynt bleeding on the ground, teeth scattered. He looked at the gold cloaks retreating into the night like thieves. King's Landing had made its move, and the king, bleeding and furious, had answered with a hammer. The trial was coming. The city would riot. The lords would choose. And somewhere in the dark, men who smiled for peace would sharpen knives for war. Dawn found the Red Keep filthy, not with the city's stink that seeped into everything. Fish rot and smoke and too many bodies packed too tight, but with fresh blood on ancient stone, a slick sheen where men had slipped and died in the night. Torches burned low in wall brackets, their smoke staining the air. The sky above was a dull pewter, as if even the sun did not want to look down. Eddard Stark stood in the courtyard with ice lowered, watching guards drag bodies into a rough line. Gold cloaks lay twisted in death, yellow cloth soaked dark. Stark men lay among them, northern blood spilled on southern stone, and Eddard felt the old anger in him. Anger that the South always found ways to make honor bleed for its games. Barristan Selmy moved through the chaos with calm authority, white cloak brushing past corpses, voice clipped and precise. "That one still breathes," he told a guard. "Bind him, and that one, leave him. He's gone." On a stretcher near the archway, Janos Slynt moaned, face a swollen ruin. His jaw hung wrong. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth when he tried to speak. Teeth lay scattered on the stone nearby like dice thrown by a cruel hand. Robert Baratheon stood a few paces away, leaning on his warhammer as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. The bandage at his shoulder was dark with fresh blood where the movement had torn it open. His face was pale under his beard, but his eyes were burning, A wounded animal's fury turned toward the whole world. Eddard approached him slowly. "You should be in bed," he said. Robert's laugh was low and ugly. "Bed?" he rasped. "So someone can slip a knife under my pillow?" Eddard's jaw tightened. "You reopened the wound," he said. Robert glanced down at the blood seeping through cloth and shrugged as if blood were a minor inconvenience. "It's nothing," he growled. "I've bled before." Eddard wanted to tell him this was different. In battle, blood was honest. Here it was a sign of weakness, a scent that drew predators. But Robert did not want the city to smell weakness. He wanted it to smell fear. Barristan stepped up, face grim. "Your Grace," he said, "the prisoners who surrendered are bound. A dozen fled. We found no sign of Prince Renly in the courtyard." Robert's mouth twisted. "Of course you didn't," he snarled. "He lets other men do his killing." Barristan did not flinch at the insult. "What is your command?" he asked. Robert's gaze slid to Slynt on the stretcher. "That one," he said softly. "He speaks." Eddard's voice was low. "Not here," he warned. "Not in the yard. Not where every servant can hear and turn words into weapons." Robert's eyes flashed. "Everything becomes a weapon here," he snapped. "Even silence." Eddard took a breath, forcing calm. "Then choose your weapon," he said. "Choose law." The word made Robert's lip curl. "Law," he muttered. "Law didn't stop a bolt in the woods. Law didn't stop poison under my cup." "No," Eddard said, "but law will coup. EP the realm from calling you what your enemies want to call you." Robert's gaze burned into him. "Mad," he whispered. Eddard held it. "Yes," he said. "Mel. Unfit. Dangerous. A king who must be protected from himself." Robert's hands tightened on the hammer haft until his knuckles shone. He looked out toward the archways, toward the keep's corridors beyond, as if he could see the city through stone. "They tried to cage me," he breathed. "In my own castle." Barristan's voice was quiet. "They tried," he agreed. Eddard's eyes flicked toward the gatehouse, where distant shouts rose from the city like an approaching tide. "And they will try again," he said. "In a different way." Robert's jaw worked. "The trial," he growled. Eddard nodded once. "The trial," he said. Robert stared at the blood on his arm, then at the bodies in the yard. "If the city thinks it can move against me," he said softly, "I will show it what a king is." Eddard heard the danger in that vow, the way it promised fire instead of justice. "Show it," he said carefully, "but do not give it an excuse to turn your strength into tyranny." Robert's eyes narrowed, as if he hated Eddard for being right. "Bring Slynt," Robert ordered. "Bring him somewhere he can speak, and bring me whoever opened the doors for these dogs." Barristan inclined his head. "As you command." As guards lifted Slynt's stretcher, the captain's eyes rolled, and he tried to speak. Wet, broken sounds spilling through blood. Eddard watched him and wondered how many men had put their coin into Janos's pocket, how many hands had guided him, and whether any of those hands belonged to lions, roses, or stags. Robert turned away, staggering a step as pain caught him, then straightening stubbornly. He started toward the keep's inner doors, hammer dragging slightly as if it were heavier now. Eddard followed, feeling the red keep's stone underfoot and the truth pressing in. This was no longer a king returning home. This was a king returning to a siege, only the enemy was already inside the walls. The dungeons smelled of old damp and older fear. Water dripped somewhere in the dark, a steady, patient sound. Torchlight flickered across stone walls slick with moisture, making shadows crawl like living things. Slynt sat strapped to a chair in a low cell, his face a wreck, jaw swollen, lips split, blood crusted at his chin. When he breathed, he wheezed. When he tried to speak, the sounds came out thick and slurred, teeth missing. Robert Baratheon stood over him like an executioner who had not yet decided whether he wanted questions or simply an excuse. His warhammer rested in his hands, heavy and real, and the sight of it made Janos's eyes dart with terror. Eddard stepped forward first, because he could not let Robert begin with rage. "Captain Slynt," Eddard said, voice controlled. "Who ordered you into the courtyard last night?" Janos blinked rapidly. His voice was a wet gurgle. "Realm," he tried to say. It came out as Reem. Robert's laugh was low. "The realm," he snarled. "Which realm? Whose?" Eddard held a hand out slightly toward Robert, a silent restraint. Then he placed objects on the small table beside Janos. A handful of lion-stamped coins taken from the dead gold cloaks, a little green token carved like a rose that had been found in a man's pouch, and a wax impression marked with a lion that Barristan had produced from a pocket. Janos stared at them like a man staring at his own sins. His throat bobbed. "Coin," Eddard said. "A rose. A lion's seal." He met Janos's eyes. "Which one bought you?" Janos's gaze flicked toward Robert's hammer, then to Eddard's steady face, then to Barristan in the shadows. Barristan's expression was unreadable, but his presence carried the weight of decades. Truth mattered, and lies would not save you. Janos swallowed hard. "Little," he began. Robert moved a half-step forward, the torchlight catching the hammerhead. "Say it," Robert growled. "Littlefinger," Janos wheezed, the word mangled by his broken mouth. He came. With coin. Eddard felt a cold thud in his chest. He had expected it. Hearing it still made the keep feel smaller. Robert's eyes blazed. "Baelish," he spat. "That smirking snake." Janos's breath hitched. "And," he forced out, "and Prince." Robert went very still. "Renly," he whispered. Janos shook his head weakly, frantic. No, Prince Joffrey," he choked. Eddard's blood chilled. He glanced at Barristan. The old knight's jaw tightened slightly, the only sign he had heard and understood. Robert's voice cracked like thunder in the small cell. "Joffrey?" he roared. "My son." Janos flinched so hard the straps creaked. "He came," Janos gasped. "With Hound," he said. "Protect. Capital. King unwell." Eddard heard the shape of it. The same words Renly had used, the same mask of peace. Now spoken by a boy who had learned it too early. Robert's face contorted. For a moment, rage and grief fought for dominance. "Unwell," he rasped, and the word shook. "They call me unwell." Eddard stepped in quickly. "Tell us everything," he said to Janos. "Who told you to move the watch? Who gave you the phrase? Who promised you protection when the king was contained?" Janos's eyes squeezed shut. He breathed hard through broken teeth. "Littlefinger," he wheezed again. "Said council, said faith, said city, said..." "Who else?" Eddard pressed. Janos's eyes opened, wet with panic. "A man," he whispered. "A tall silk," he coughed blood. "Not Renly," his gaze darted. But Renly knew. Robert's hammer shifted in his hands, the head lifting slightly. "If you lie," Robert said softly, "I will finish what I started on your jaw." Janos's voice cracked. He smiled. He sobbed, and the sob was pathetic, ugly. Renly smiled, said, "For peace," said, "For realm." Eddard closed his eyes briefly, the confirmation bitter. Renly might not have issued the orders, but he had watched them being sharpened and did not flinch. Barristan stepped forward, voice quiet but deadly. "And the men who rushed the king's corridor," he said, "were they city watch?" Janos shook his head weakly. "Some," he wheezed. "Some paid others." Hood ran up. Eddard's mind flashed to the hooded figure that had slipped upward during the night fight. "Who?" he demanded. "Name him." Janos's lips trembled. "Didn't know," he gasped. "Not watch hired." "Hired by whom?" Eddard pressed. Janos's gaze flicked to the lion wax on the table. "She," he whispered. "Queen, she sent wax, she." Robert's roar filled the cell. "She is chained," he thundered. "You expect me to believe she ordered my death from chains?" Eddard's voice was low. "Chains don't stop messages," he said. "We've seen that." Robert's breathing went ragged. He stared at Janos as if Janos were a mirror showing him the world's contempt. Then Robert's gaze slid away, toward nothing, toward the thought of Joffrey speaking of protecting the realm from his own father. Eddard felt the ground shifting under them. The coup attempt had not only been a move against Robert, it had been a move to teach the realm a new story, that the king's own blood could be used as a banner against him. Barristan's voice was steady. "Captain Slynt," he said, "you will write down every name you can remember, every man who paid you, every man who spoke to you, every man who stood beside you." Janos trembled. "I can't." "You can," Barristan said, and his calm was more frightening than Robert's rage. Robert leaned in close to Janos, voice low and shaking. "If I find out you kept a name from me," he whispered, "I will not hang you. I will not behead you. I will break you until there is nothing left to scream." Janos sobbed, head bobbing. Eddard looked at the lion coins and the rose token and the wax seal and felt the truth harden. The trial was not the only battlefield. The city itself had chosen to test the king's power. And worse, someone had taught the king's son to enjoy the sound of that test. Power in King's Landing was always borrowed, and it always came due. By afternoon, Robert had turned his fury into orders. The city watch could not be allowed to remain a bought blade at the city's throat. Not if the king meant to survive the week. Janos Slynt had been the city's face. The rot beneath him was older. Barristan Selmy brought a man to Robert in a corridor outside the throne room, where tapestries muffled sound and guards stood thick as thorns. "Your Grace," Barristan said, "this is Jacelyn Bywater." The man who stepped forward was lean, sharp, and hard-eyed. He wore gold cloak armor without pride, like a tool worn because it was required. One eye was gone. The empty socket healed ugly, giving him a permanent look of contempt. His remaining eye was cold and clear. He bowed once. It was not deep. It was enough. Robert looked him up and down. "You command men?" Robert demanded. Bywater's voice was rough, unadorned. "I command those who will be commanded," he said, "and I hang those who won't." A murmur shifted among the gold cloaks lined behind. Some nervous, some defiant, all watching for which way the wind would blow. Robert's mouth twisted. "Good," he growled, "because the watch is rotten." Bywater did not blink. "It is bought," he said. "Rotten implies it happened by accident." Eddard felt a faint flicker of approval. A man who spoke like that was dangerous but useful. Barristan's gaze stayed on Robert. "Captain Slynt is under guard," he said. "The watch needs a commander who is not in debt." Robert's eyes narrowed. "No debt," he echoed. "Everyone in this city owes someone." Bywater's remaining eye fixed on Robert. "Then choose who they owe," he said bluntly, "or someone else will." Robert stared at him for a long moment. The king's shoulder wound pulled when he shifted, and pain tightened his jaw. Then Robert nodded once, sharp. "You," he said, "you will command the watch." A ripple ran through the gold cloaks. Some looked relieved. Others looked like men watching their coin purse vanish. Bywater inclined his head. "As you command," he said. Robert's voice hardened. "You will purge the watch," he ordered. "Any man found with lion coin goes to the gallows. Any man found taking orders from anyone but me goes to the gallows. And any man who so much as looks at my queen with sympathy." Eddard cut in quickly. "Your Grace," he said low. "Not that. Not now." Robert's eyes flashed. "They tried to cage me," he snarled. "And you will answer," Eddard said. "But if you turn this into personal vengeance, you hand Renly and Tywin the story they want." Bywater watched them with his one eye, silent, absorbing. Robert exhaled hard. "Fine," he snapped. "Coin, orders, treason. That's enough." Bywater nodded once. "I will start with the barracks," he said. "The men who stood with Slynt last night." Robert's jaw clenched. "And Littlefinger," he growled. "Baelish." Eddard's stomach tightened. "We don't have him," he said quiet. "Lee." A guard stepped forward, face pale. "My lord," he said to Eddard. Lord Peter Baelish has not been seen since last night. His manse is empty. Servants gone. Eddard felt the chill settle deeper. Gone, he murmured. Robert's laugh was pure venom. Of course he's gone, he snarled. He buys a coup, then slips away like piss down a drain. Barristan's jaw tightened. We can close the gates, he said. Bywater's eye flicked toward the corridor windows. Too late, he said. He'd have left before dawn. Robert's face contorted. Find him, he growled. Find him and drag him back in chains. Eddard spoke carefully because this mattered. If he's fled, he said. He's fled toward someone stronger. Toward Tywin. Toward Renly. Toward anyone who will shelter him. Robert's gaze blazed. Renly, he spat. As if summoned by his name, another guard hurried in, breathless. Your Grace, the man said. Prince Renly is not in his chambers. His household says he left before dawn with a small escort. They do not know where. Robert went very still. He ran, he whispered. Eddard felt the weight of it. Renly had moved the moment blood spilled. He would not stay in a castle where Robert's hammer could reach him. Barristan's voice was grim. Storm's End, he said quietly, as if thinking aloud. Or the Reach. Robert's eyes narrowed. Highgarden, he growled. Bywater's voice cut in, blunt. If the prince has gone to the Tyrells, he said, then the city will hear a new story soon. Eddard's throat tightened. A story of stability, he murmured. Robert's hand tightened around his hammer. I am the king, he rasped. I am stability. Eddard looked at the gold cloaks lining the corridor, at their uneasy eyes, at the city's hum pressing in through stone. Then prove it, he said softly, before they crown someone else's version of you. Bywater turned and barked orders, his voice carrying down the corridor. Gold cloaks snapped into motion, some eager, some terrified. The purge began with footsteps and iron and the sound of doors being kicked open. And above it all, like a shadow on the wall, the trial date hung in the air soon before rumors grew teeth. Soon before the city decided who it wanted dead. Varys came to Eddard when the keep was quiet enough to hear lies being born. It was late, the hour when torches guttered and servants moved like ghosts, and the city outside never truly slept, its fires and lamps flickering like a restless sea of hunger. In a small solar with a narrow window, Eddard stood over a table covered in parchment and seals, trying to build certainty out of ink. Varys drifted in without announcement, hands folded in his sleeves, face composed in gentle sorrow. My lord, he murmured, and the softness of it was almost insulting in a castle that had bled the night before. Eddard did not offer a chair. He did not offer wine. Renly fled, he said flatly. Varys's eyes were sad. Yes, he replied, and Littlefinger has flown the coop as well. Eddard's jaw tightened. Then we are surrounded by ghosts, he said. By ambitions, Varys corrected softly. Ghosts are quieter. Eddard held up the list he'd been writing. Names, locations, scraps of identity pulled from memory and Varys's earlier hints. I need proof, Eddard said. For the trial, for the realm. Varys's gaze flicked over the parchment. Proof is such an expensive word, he murmured. In this city, most people settle for spectacle. Eddard's eyes hardened. I will not, he said. Not with children at stake. Varys's expression tightened, almost imperceptibly. Ah, he murmured. The children, yes. Eddard tapped the parchment. Robert's bastards, he said. If the Baratheon seed is as strong as the book claims, then seeing his blood may sway men. It may. He stopped, because even saying it aloud felt like dragging innocence into a storm. Varys's voice was gentle and cruel in its honesty. It may also get them killed, he said. Eddard's throat tightened. Then tell me where they are, he demanded, so I can protect them. Varys watched him for a long moment. You are a rare man, Lord Stark, he said softly. Most men ask where they are so they can use them. Eddard did not flinch. I will not let them die for Robert's sins. he said. Varys's gaze drifted toward the window, toward the city lights. "Some are already dead," he murmured, and the quietness of it hit like a blow. Eddard's breath caught. "What?" Varys's hands tightened slightly within his sleeves. "Littlefinger has been very busy for a very long time," he said softly. "And so has the Queen." His eyes returned to Eddard, heavy with meaning. When kings begin asking questions about blood, people who fear the answers begin cutting throats. Eddard felt cold spread through him. "Gendry," he said, the name half question, half prayer. Varys's gaze flicked away. "Alive," he said. "For now. Hidden." Eddard's voice sharpened. "Where?" Varys hesitated, and in that hesitation Eddard saw the true shape of Varys's loyalty. Not to kings, not to lords, but to the realm. An idea that could justify any betrayal. "If I tell you," Varys said softly, "you will bring him into court. The court will see him. The city will hear of him. And then knives will find him." Eddard slammed his palm on the table hard enough to rattle inkpots. "Then what do you suggest?" he snapped. "That we do nothing and let the realm choose its lies?" Varys's eyes were sad. "I suggest," he murmured, "that you choose which truth you can afford." Eddard stared at him, fury and frustration tightening in his chest. "Robert saw them," he said. "He saw the incest. He saw enough. And still the realm doubts because it doubts him." Varys nodded faintly. "The realm doubts because it fears what certainty will cost," he said. "If the children are illegitimate, then half the lords must admit they have been kneeling to a lie. Men do not like admitting that. They prefer to call the man who says it mad." Eddard's jaw clenched. "Then we make it undeniable," he said. Varys's voice softened. "Undeniable things start wars," he murmured. Eddard leaned in, face hard. "The war has started," he said. "The riverlands burn. The Watch tried to seize the king. Poison sits under his cup. Do not speak to me of avoiding war." Varys held his gaze, and for the first time his softness thinned. "Then understand this," he said quietly. "Renly will go to the Tyrells. He will offer them a crown they can touch. Tywin will offer them gold they can spend. Stannis will offer them law they can fear." His eyes narrowed slightly. "And Robert will offer them rage." Eddard felt the truth of it like a stone in his gut. Varys slid a smaller parchment across the table, blank on one side. "If you must have a bastard," he murmured, "take one who can be hidden again afterward, and do not bring him through the main streets. The city's ears are everywhere." Eddard stared at the parchment, then at Varys. "You are helping me," he said. Varys's smile was faint, tired. "I am helping the realm," he replied. "Sometimes that looks like helping you." Eddard folded the parchment and tucked it inside his cloak. "If any harm comes to them," he began. Varys raised a hand gently. "Harm has already come," he said softly. "We are only deciding how much more." When Varys left, the solar felt colder. Eddard looked at the list of names again and felt the weight of each one. Children born in shadows, now dragged toward torchlight because kings had broken their own beds. Outside, the city's torches flickered. Somewhere beyond the walls, men shouted in taverns. Somewhere within the keep, Cersei Lannister smiled in chains and waited for the trial to become a knife. Eddard Stark realized, with a cold certainty, that the trial would not simply judge Cersei. It would judge whether truth still had any power in the South at all. They dressed the throne room like a courtroom and called it peace. By morning, the Iron Throne's hall was packed so tightly with lords and ladies that the air itself felt heavy. Silk brushed against mail. Perfume fought with sweat. Whispers slipped from mouth to mouth like spiders, spinning webs before any words were spoken aloud. The faith had been given a place, an uneasy compromise, because the High Septon had threatened to make the gods' displeasure a weapon in the streets. He sat on a raised chair draped in white and gold, the seven-pointed star hanging behind him like an accusation. Septons clustered nearby, solemn and hungry for righteousness. Septas watched with eyes that did not blink. Robert Baratheon sat on the Iron Throne with his cloak arranged to hide the worst of his bandaged shoulder, though the stiffness of his posture betrayed pain. His warhammer rested beside the steps like a reminder that this king did not forget how to solve problems when patience failed. Eddard Stark stood below, ice at his side, feeling the room's gaze press against him. He was the North in a southern hall, and every man here knew the North had seen the king's fury first. Barristan Selmy stood near the dais, white cloak immaculate, face carved in duty. Jacelyn Bywater stood with a knot of gold cloaks, his one eye scanning the crowd for movement that did not belong. Stark guards formed a second line, grim, hands near sword hilts. Two armies inside one hall, pretending to be one. The doors opened. Cersei Lannister entered. Her chains were visible today, not hidden under velvet. The iron at her wrists gleamed in torchlight. It should have made her look diminished. It did not. She walked with her head high, hair braided like a crown, face composed, as if the chains were merely ornaments meant to emphasize her importance. A murmur ran through the hall, swelling like wind through reeds. Robert's gaze locked on her. "There she is," he said, and his voice was rough, more hurt than he would ever admit. Cersei stopped at the center of the hall and inclined her head slightly, a mockery of courtesy. "My king," she said softly. Robert's hand tightened on the throne arm. "Do not," he growled. The High Septon lifted his hands. "In the eyes of the Seven," he began, voice thin but carrying. "We gather to weigh sin and truth." Robert cut him off with a harsh laugh. "We gather to weigh treason," he snapped. "Sin is for Septons. Treason is for kings." A ripple of unease ran through the holy men. The High Septon's cheeks colored. "Treason against a husband is sin," he said, voice sharpening. Robert leaned forward slightly, eyes burning. "Then call it both," he growled, "and let her answer for it." A clerk stepped forward to read charges in a shaking voice. Adultery, incest, betrayal of vows, conspiracy, sedition, attempted regicide by poison, falsifying heirs. Each word landed heavy. Each word seemed to make the air tighter. Cersei listened without flinching, her face still. When the clerk finished, silence fell, expectant and hungry. The High Septon looked at her as if waiting for confession to fall from her mouth like a coin from a purse. "Cersei of House Lannister," he said. "How do you answer?" Cersei's eyes swept the hall. She looked at lords who had once bowed to her for her father's gold. She looked at ladies who had envied her hair and hated her power. She looked at Robert, and then at Eddard Stark, as if weighing which of them was more dangerous. Then she smiled faintly. "I answer," she said softly, "that you have dragged me here to make your shame a spectacle." A murmur rippled. Robert's face contorted. "My shame," he roared. "You think this is about me being embarrassed?" Cersei's voice stayed calm. "Isn't it?" she asked, and the calmness was a blade. "You killed my brother in a wolf's hall. You broke the realm's peace with a hammer. And now you want the city to cheer while you destroy your own house." The High Septon lifted a hand, voice stern. "You will not speak to the king with—" "I will speak," Cersei interrupted smoothly, "because you invited me to answer." Robert's breath came hard. Eddard felt the hall's tension rise. Cersei was doing exactly what Eddard feared, turning the trial from her sins to Robert's. Eddard stepped forward before Robert could explode. "The charges are not shame," he said, voice controlled. "They are treason. You were witnessed. You were seized. Your brother attempted rescue. You have already admitted, in the king's hearing, that the children are not his." Cersei's eyes glittered. "I admitted nothing," she said. "I taunted a drunken man who demanded he be comforted with lies." She tilted her head. "Is that confession now? Or is it simply a husband's rage dressed as law?" Whispers surged. Robert's knuckles whitened. "You will speak truth," he snarled. Cersei's smile sharpened. "Truth," she murmured. "Yes, let us speak truth." Her gaze slid to the High Septon. Does the faith allow a woman accused by a violent husband to demand trial by combat? The hall stiffened. Barristan's jaw tightened. Eddard felt cold dread. Trial by combat was not justice. It was theater with blood. The High Septon hesitated, eyes narrowing. The gods judge through combat, he said slowly. Robert's laugh was harsh. Choose, he snapped. Choose your champion, and I'll split his skull like. Eddard's voice cut in, low and hard. No, he said, not with the king's hands. Cersei's eyes gleamed as if pleased by the fracture. Ah, she murmured. Even the honorable wolf fears what the king is. Eddard did not look away. He felt the crowd outside in his bones, waiting for violence like a feast. He saw Renly's absence like a shadow on the wall. He saw Tywin's gold behind too many eyes, and he realized the trial had already become what the city wanted. A contest to see whether Robert Baratheon would break first. Trial by combat was an old lie dressed as faith. It turned truth into a question of muscle and steel, and the gods were always blamed for whichever man bled last. In a hall full of hungry eyes, it was irresistible. The High Septon's voice wavered between sanctimony and fear. The accused may demand the gods' judgment, he said, and each word sounded heavier because he knew what he was unleashing. Robert surged as if to stand, fury snapping his restraint. Fine, he snarled. Fine. Let the gods watch. I'll... Eddard stepped forward, hand raised, voice low and sharp. No, he said. You do not fight. Robert's head snapped to him. Why not? He roared. Because you think I'll lose? Because you think I'm weak? Eddard held his gaze. Because if you fight and you kill her champion, you are still the king who solves law with a hammer, he said. And if you fall... He let the sentence hang because it did not need finishing. Barristan Selmy's voice was quiet, controlled. Your Grace, he said. Lord Stark is right. Robert's eyes flashed, betrayed by even this. Right? He spat. Everyone is right except the man whose bed was rotten. Cersei watched the exchange with a faint smile. Choose a champion, she said softly, unless you would deny me the gods. The High Septon's gaze flicked between king and queen like a man watching wolves circle. The crown may appoint its champion as well, he said carefully. Robert's mouth twisted. My champion? He snarled. I don't need one. Eddard's voice stayed steady. You do, he said, and you will choose wisely because the realm will watch who you choose. Robert's chest heaved. He stared at Cersei as if he wanted to tear her apart with his hands. Then he looked out at the lords, at their eager eyes, at their whispers, and something ugly shifted into calculation. Ser Barristan, Robert said abruptly. Barristan stiffened. Your Grace, you are my Kingsguard, Robert growled. You are honor. You will be my champion. A murmur rippled. Barristan's eyes tightened. For a heartbeat, Eddard saw the trap. Barristan was old, respected, but not invincible. If Cersei chose a monstrous champion, if Tywin's dog arrived in time, Barristan could die, and Robert would lose more than a fight. He would lose the last symbol of honor the realm still believed in. Barristan bowed his head slowly. As you command, he said, and the words tasted like duty and regret. Cersei's smile deepened. How noble, she murmured. The king sends an old man to die for his anger. Robert's roar shook the hall. Shut your mouth, he bellowed. Cersei turned to the High Septon. I choose my champion, she said. Silence snapped tight. Eddard watched her face, searching for the flicker that would reveal the name. Gregor Clegane was not in the city, unless Tywin had brought him closer than they knew. Sandor Clegane was in the keep, but he hated his brother and did not love Cersei. A Kingsguard might be forced, but that would split the White Cloaks further. Cersei's eyes slid toward the side of the hall where Sandor Clegane stood near the doors, a dark presence among gold cloaks. The Hound's face was unreadable. Joffrey was not present, kept away for safety, Eddard had insisted, but Eddard could almost feel the boy's hunger anyway. Cersei's voice was soft as silk. Ser Sandor Clegane, she said. The Hound. A shockwave ran through the hall. Sandor Clegane went very still. His burned mouth tightened. His eyes flicked to Robert, then to Cersei, then to Barristan. Something like disgust flashed, quickly smothered. Robert's face contorted. No, he snarled. He is not yours. The High Septon's voice was cautious. A champion must consent, he said. Sandor's laugh was low and bitter. Consent, he rumbled. A lovely word. Cersei's gaze held him, unblinking. You serve the crown, she said, and I am the crown's queen. Sandor's eyes slid to Robert. Am I? He asked, voice rough. Or do I serve the boy who will be king when you're done poisoning his father? The hall shuddered with whispers at the bluntness. Cersei's smile thinned. Careful, she murmured. Dogs who bite their masters are put down. Sandor's mouth twisted. I've been put down before, he said. I still got up. The High Septon lifted his hands, panicked by the unraveling. Enough, he called. The champion must be named and sworn. Sandor stared at Cersei for a long moment, then glanced toward the doors as if measuring escape. Eddard saw it. Sandor did not want to fight for her, but he also did not want to die for refusing in front of a hall full of lords. Sandor spat onto the stone. Fine, he growled. I'll fight. Cersei's smile returned, victorious. Robert's face went ashen with rage. You, he snarled at Sandor. You will. Eddard stepped in, voice low. This is what she wanted, he murmured. A spectacle. Do not give her more. Robert's breathing was ragged. He stared at Cersei as if he could see the city's knives behind her eyes. When? He demanded. The High Septon swallowed. At dawn, he said, voice thin. Before the gods. Eddard felt the city tighten around them. Dawn. Too soon. Too public. Too easy for chaos to slip a blade between ribs. And that, he realized, was the point. Eddard did not trust dawn. He trusted stone and steel and the grim honesty of the North. In King's Landing, dawn was merely when men decided to do their worst in public. While the keep prepared for spectacle, Eddard moved quietly. He took Jory Castle and 2 men he trusted, silent, hard-eyed Stark guards who did not ask questions, because questions in this city could be heard. They wore plain cloaks and kept their hands near hidden knives. Varys's instructions had been brief. Tunnel. A door. A turn past old drains where the air stank of rot. A dead-end alley where a boy would be waiting with a smith's hammer in his hand like a talisman. They moved through the red keep's underbelly, torchlight dim, footsteps muffled. Above them, the castle's life continued. Lords whispering, servants rushing, Septons praying. Down here, there was only damp and the sense of being watched. At the tunnel's end, a hidden door opened onto a narrow alley behind a butcher's yard. The stench hit them first. Blood, offal, smoke. Rats skittered near a pile of bones. A boy stood in the alley's shadow, tall for his age, shoulders squared like a man used to swinging iron. His hair was black as coal. His eyes were wary, quick, and when he saw Eddard, his grip tightened on the hammer. You're not Gold Cloaks, the boy said, voice rough. You're a Stark, Eddard said quietly. Do you know your name? The boy hesitated. Gendry, he said, and the name sounded like a weapon he was not sure he should reveal. Eddard stepped closer, studying him. The boy's face was not Robert's, but the shape of him, the set of jaw, the stubbornness in the brow, felt like a familiar echo. More than that, the hair was the proof men spoke of in whispers. Baratheon black, strong as iron. Jory's eyes widened slightly as he saw it, as if the truth of it struck him harder than any sword. Who sent you? Gendry demanded. Eddard's voice stayed low. A man who wants you alive, he said. Gendry's eyes narrowed. I've had men want me dead, he muttered. This city's full of wants. A soft sound came from above. Eddard's gaze flicked upward. On a rooftop, a small face peeked down, one of Varys's little birds, then vanished as quickly as it appeared, as if satisfied the delivery had been made. Far down the alley, torchlight swept briefly. Gold cloaks patrolling, boots thudding, voices low. The beam of light slid across wet cobble and then moved on. Eddard felt the city's teeth. "We don't have time," he said. "You're coming with us." Gendry's jaw tightened. "Why?" he demanded. "I didn't do anything." "You were born," Eddard said, and the bluntness of it made Gendry flinch. Jory stepped closer, voice gentler than his scarred face suggested. "It's not punishment," he said. "It's protection." Gendry snorted. "Protection," he muttered. "From who?" Eddard looked toward the distant torchlight. "From everyone," he said. They moved quickly, Gendry in the middle, Stark men flanking, cloaks drawn tight. Boy's hammer stayed in his hand, knuckles white, as if he would rather face a mob than be dragged like prey. As they slipped back into the tunnel, Eddard heard the city above, distant shouting, a swell of voices that sounded like a crowd gathering. The trial by combat at dawn was already drawing people like flies to meat. Eddard's mind raced. If he brought Gendry into the hall, he might save the realm with proof, or he might paint a target on the boy's back that no cloak could hide. He looked at the boy's black hair in torchlight and felt cold certainty. Truth had a face now, and faces were easy to cut. Dawn turned King's Landing into a throat. The great September of Baelor rose white against a gray sky, its steps crowded with bodies pressed close, faces hungry, mouths already shouting. Gold cloaks formed a line, spears down, trying to keep the mass from spilling upward, but mobs were rivers. Push them and they found another way around. Above, on the broad platform before the Sept doors, the space had been cleared for the gods' judgment. The high Septons sat beneath a canopy, eyes bright, hands folded, as if he were watching a feast. Septons and Septas clustered near him, murmuring prayers like knives being sharpened on stone. Cersei Lannister stood in chains near the edge of the platform, cloak drawn tight, hair braided, face calm. She looked down at the crowd and smiled faintly, as if she could taste the city's hunger and found it sweet. Robert Baratheon lay in a litter set back from the fighting space, his face rigid with pain and fury. His warhammer rested within reach because even here, even now, he could not bear to be without it. Eddard stood close to the litter, one hand on Ice's hilt, eyes scanning the crowd. He saw stones in hands. He saw knives hidden under rags. He saw gold cloaks sweating, their line bowing under pressure. Jacelyn Bywater's one-eyed glare moved over them like a warning, but warnings did not always stop hunger. In the center of the cleared space, Barristan Selmy drew his sword. The blade was plain steel, but in his hands it looked like law made physical. Barristan's white cloak snapped in the wind. He stood straight, calm, an old man who had survived young men's wars and did not fear dying in a city spectacle if duty demanded it. Across from him, Sandor Clegane stepped forward, heavy and dark, his scarred face half hidden beneath a helm he had not bothered to close. His eyes were flat. His sword was heavier than Barristan's, built for brutality rather than elegance. The crowd roared as they faced each other, chanting names like prayers, Selmy, Hound, until the words became a roar that shook the Sept stones. The High Septon lifted his hands. "The gods will judge," he intoned. Robert's voice carried from the litter, rough and furious. "Just fight," he snarled. Barristan's eyes did not flick toward him. He focused on Sandor, on stance, on breath. "Ser Sandor," Barristan said quietly. "You do not want this." Sandor's burned mouth twisted. "I want to be left alone," he rumbled. "The gods didn't ask me." Barristan nodded faintly. "None of us are asked," he said. The High Septon's voice rose. "Begin." Barristan moved first. Not with a wild charge, but with a precise step, blade flicking. Sandor met him with a heavy sweep meant to break guard and bone. Steel rang, loud and clean. The fight was not like songs. It was ugly, fast, and close. Sandor's strength was terrifying, every swing a threat that could end it. Barristan's skill was sharper, every movement efficient, conserving breath, conserving life. Sandor Dr. Barristan back 2 steps with brute force. Barristan slipped aside, blade darting, cutting Sandor's forearm. Blood beaded, dark against scarred skin. Sandor snarled, not in pain but in anger at being marked. The crowd roared, surging forward. Gold cloaks shoved them back. A stone flew and struck a guard's helm. The guard staggered, line wavering. Eddard's eyes flicked to the crowd's front. He saw faces too calm, too intent. Men not watching for sport but for an opening. He saw a crossbow hidden under a cloak for a heartbeat before the cloak shifted again. On the platform, Barristan and Sandor circled, breath steaming. Barristan's blade flashed toward Sandor's thigh. Sandor twisted, kicked, nearly catching Barristan's knee. Barristan slipped back, age in the movement for the first time, a slight stiffness. Sandor saw it and surged. His sword came down in a brutal overhead strike. Barristan raised his blade to meet it, arms shuddering. The impact drove Barristan's knee toward the stone. His face tightened, but he did not break. Robert gripped the litter's edge, knuckles white. "Kill him," he growled, and Eddard heard the fear beneath the rage. If Barristan fell, the king's last symbol of honor fell with him. Cersei watched, eyes bright, smile faint. She did not flinch when Sandor's blood splattered near her feet. She only watched for which way the world would fall. Barristan twisted, slipping his blade along Sandor's guard, cutting again, this time across the Hound's shoulder. Sandor grunted, staggered half a step, then snarled and slammed his sword sideways, forcing Barristan back. The crowd's roar swelled. A gold cloak line buckled. Bodies pressed up the steps, hands clawing. Eddard's voice cut through to Bywater. "Hold them," he snapped. "Hold them or the king dies here." Bywater's one eye burned. He barked orders, men shoving with spear hafts, but the mob was a beast with too many mouths. On the platform, the fight tightened into a knot of steel and breath. Barristan's blade darted. Sandor's sword crashed. Sweat ran down Barristan's temple. Blood ran down Sandor's arm. And in the chaos of sound, steel shouting prayer, Eddard heard something else. A soft twang, almost lost. A crossbow string. His head snapped. The bolt flew like a decision already made. It cut through the air toward Robert's litter, black and fast, aimed not at the king's head but at the soft place under the ribs where breath lived. Eddard moved without thought, body turning before mind, ice coming up in a blur. Valyrian steel caught the bolt with a metallic snap that rang louder than any shout. The impact jarred Eddard's arms. The bolt shattered, splinters of wood and iron raining onto the stone. For a heartbeat, the world froze around that sound, and then it erupted. The crowd screamed. Not in horror, but in excitement, because blood had almost been spilled where everyone could see it. Gold cloaks shouted, pushing back with staves and spear hafts, but the line was already cracking. Men surged, hands clawing, bodies pressing up the steps like a tide. Barristan Selmy turned mid-fight, eyes widening for the first time. Sandor Clegane's sword paused half-raised, and in that pause Eddard saw something like disgust on the Hound's scarred face. Sandor did not love Robert, but he hated cowardice more than he hated kings. Robert tried to rise from the litter, fury exploding. "Who?" he roared. "Who dares?" Eddard's gaze swept the crowd, searching for the shooter. Too many faces, too many hands. He saw a man ducking, cloak pulled up. He saw another man shoving a child aside to get closer. He saw a woman screaming prayers and spitting at the same time. He saw Bywater with his one eye blazing, barking orders, dragging gold cloaks into a tighter knot. And he saw Cersei. Her smile had flickered into something sharper. Not fear, not shock, but satisfaction tinted with calculation. The bolt had not killed Robert. It had done something else. It had proven to the city that the king could be targeted in front of the gods. The high septon rose, robes billowing, voice shrill. "Sacrilege!" he cried. "Violence in the gods' sight." Robert snarled up at him. "Then stop hiding behind gods and point me at the man who shot." The High Septon's face flushed, and for a heartbeat Eddard thought he might actually order the crowd to calm. Instead, the holy men stepped back, frightened, and fear fed the mob. Barristan's voice cut through, sharp. "Your Grace, inside," he commanded. Robert's eyes blazed. "No," he snarled. "I will not be." Another bolt hissed from the crowd. Eddard moved again, ice flashing, but this bolt struck a gold cloak instead, buried in his throat. The man collapsed, choking. The line of guards buckled further. The mob surged. Steel came out in the crowd. Small knives, short blades, desperation made sharp. Gold cloaks swung staves, cracking skulls. A man screamed as his arm was broken. A woman fell, trampled, her voice swallowed. On the platform, Barristan moved fast, grabbing Sandor's arm with his free hand. "Enough," he snapped. "The fight is done. The gods have spoken enough." Sandor ripped his arm free, eyes burning. "I'm not done," he growled. Barristan's gaze flicked toward Obert's litter, toward the bolts, toward the mob spilling upward. "You are," he said, and the authority in his voice made even Sandor pause. Cersei's voice rang out, soft and deadly amid chaos. "Look at him," she called to the crowd. "Look at your king. He brings death to the September. He brings blood to the gods." The words were fuel. The crowd roared. Some shouted "Whore!" at her, but more shouted "Mad King!" at Robert, because it was easier to hate the man with power than the woman in chains. Robert's face contorted. He reached for his hammer as if he meant to smash the mob into silence. Eddard grabbed his arm, pulling hard. "Robert," Eddard hissed, voice low and desperate. "Inside. Now, if you swing that hammer here, you give them everything." Robert's breath came ragged. For a heartbeat, he looked like he might strike Eddard instead. Then another bolt twanged, and it was enough. The king's survival instinct finally grabbed the reins of his rage. "Move," Robert growled. Stark guards closed in tight, forming a wall around the litter. Barristan stepped to the front, blade up, cutting down a man who surged too close with a knife. Sandor Clegane snarled and hacked at the edge of the mob, buying space with brutality. They began to retreat toward the Sept doors, toward stone that could be barred. The High Septon shouted prayers. Septons screamed. The statues of the seven loomed above, indifferent. As Robert's litter was hauled backward, the crowd surged again, hands clawing. A man grabbed a litter pole. A Stark guard slammed his sword pommel into the man's face, breaking nose and teeth. Blood sprayed. The man fell and the mob roared louder. Eddard's heart hammered. He glanced once, over the crush, and saw something that made his blood go colder than any winter wind. Joffrey Baratheon's face in the crowd's shadowed edge, half hidden beneath a hood, eyes bright with excitement. He was not frightened. He was watching. Eddard turned away, dragging his focus back to the king, to survival, to stone doors closing. But the image of Joffrey's hungry eyes stayed with him like a knife pressed to the back of his mind. Because if Joffrey had been there, then someone had allowed it. And if someone had allowed it, then this riot was not only hunger, it was design. The doors slammed shut with a sound like judgment. For a heartbeat, the vestibule was only breath and blood and the muffled roar of the city outside, pounding against stone as if it could break it down by hunger alone. The air smelled of incense and sweat, and now the sharp copper tang of fear. Robert Baratheon stood in the center of the vestibule, chest heaving, face twisted with fury. His warhammer was in his hands. Someone had thrust it into them during the retreat, and he held it raised as if he meant to smash the doors open and wade into the crowd like a god of wrath. Eddard stepped in front of him, ice drawn halfway, not as threat but as barrier. "No," he said, voice low. Robert's eyes blazed. "They tried to kill me," he snarled. "In the gods' own September." Eddard held his gaze. "And if you answer with slaughter," he said, "you will prove every whisper true." Robert's breathing was ragged. His shoulder wound had bled again, staining the edge of his cloak. He looked like a king dragged through war rather than a king ruling it. Barristan Selmy leaned against a pillar for a moment. One hand pressed to a cut on his forearm where Sandor's blade had grazed him before the chaos ended the duel. His face was pale, but his eyes were steady. Sandor Clegane stood near the doors, sword still in hand, panting, eyes flat. "This city's a cesspit," he growled, as if naming it could make it less true. Cersei Lannister stood a few paces away, chains clinking softly, hair perfect, face composed. She looked at Robert's raised hammer and smiled faintly. Robert's head snapped toward her. "You," he rasped. Cersei's voice was soft. "Me," she murmured. "And look, your trial, your gods, your righteousness." She tilted her head toward the doors where the mob thundered. All of it devoured by the city. Robert took a step toward her, hammer shifting. Eddard moved with him, blocking. "Do not touch her," Eddard warned, and he hated that he had to. Robert's voice cracked. "She called them," he snarled. "She fed them." Cersei's smile sharpened. "I spoke," she said. The city listened. Perhaps they are tired of kings who think fear is rule. Barristan's voice cut in, quiet and firm. "Enough," he said. "In this place, words are already too sharp." Robert's gaze flicked to him, and something like betrayal flashed, because even Barristan was telling him no. Robert's hand tightened on the hammer. Then, slowly, he lowered it. Not because he had calmed, but because he recognized dimly that smashing doors in the Sept would not be remembered as justice. It would be remembered as madness. Outside, the roar swelled. Wood groaned under pounding fists. A stone struck the door from without, thudding. A prayer turned into a scream. Eddard's mind raced. The trial was ruined. The Sept was not safe. The city had shown it could reach the king in daylight beneath statues of gods. Renly had fled. Littlefinger had vanished. Tywin's gold moved like water. Stannis's letters would know. W read like prophecy fulfilled. Robert looked around the vestibule, eyes wild and hollow all at once. "They won't let me rule," he whispered. Eddard's throat tightened. "They will," he said, though it sounded like a lie. Cersei's voice slipped in, soft as silk. "They will let you die," she murmured. "That is what they will allow." Robert's eyes flashed. "I am not dying," he snarled. Barristan straightened, wiping blood from his blade with a cloth torn from his sleeve. "We must leave," he said. "Not through the front." Eddard nodded. "A back way," he said. "A crypt passage if the Sept has one. A tunnel." Sandor grunted. "Everything in this city has tunnels," he muttered. Robert stared at the doors as if he wanted to hear the mob's voice clearly. Then he turned to Eddard, and in his eyes was a raw question. What now? The same question he had asked in Winterfell's Godswood, only now it carried the weight of a city trying to kill him. Eddard answered with the only truth he had left. "Now we survive," he said. "And then we choose a battlefield where the city can't hide knives in every mouth." Robert's jaw clenched. "I will have my trial," he growled. Eddard met his gaze. "You will," he said, "but not on their terms." Outside, the mob thundered louder, furious at being denied blood. Inside, the king stood in a Sept vestibule with a hammer in his hands and the world's hatred at the door. And in that moment, Eddard Stark understood. The city had not just tried to kill Robert. It had tried to crown the idea that Robert Baratheon could be overruled. Once that idea existed, it would not die easily. Not even with a hammer.